deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America.
The former president, whose campaign was fueled by dark rhetoric and calls for revenge, now pledging to help heal the country.
It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try. We have to try. And it's going to happen. Success will bring us together.
Turning to some of his top priorities, like securing the southern border, boosting energy production, and avoiding overseas conflicts.
I will govern by a simple motto: promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises. Nothing will stop me from keeping my word to you, the people.
The race ultimately coming down to 7 swing states. Trump may now sweep all of them. After 11 p.m., the first one was called for him. The former president later winning Georgia, then Pennsylvania, and clinching victory with a win in Wisconsin. In county after county across the country, improving on his margin of victory in past races. ABC News exit polling data showing Trump gained critical ground, particularly among young men in union households. But his most surprising surge among Hispanic voters. The best showing for a Republican presidential candidate in exit polls since 1976. Up 13 points from 2020, although he still trailed Harris 53-45.
We've built the biggest, the broadest, the most unified coalition. They've never seen anything like it in all of American history.
And Diane, Trump now the first former president to return to power in more than 130 years and the first convicted felon to be elected. And he made no mention of Vice President Kamala Harris during that speech, Diane.
Rachel Scott, thank you. And ABC News Deputy Political Director Avery Harper joins me now for a look at the numbers. Avery, Republicans have won control of not just the White House here, but also the Senate. ABC News has not yet projected which party will control the House of Representatives. That's TBD. So what's at stake now with these last few House races left?
Right. There are a few House races that are still a toss-up right now, too close to call. When we look at the numbers, the scoreboard, we see that Democrats have 190 seats and Republicans have 204 seats. 218 is the magic number to gain control of that chamber. And whoever gets control of the chamber will be able to either further former President Trump and President-elect Trump's agenda. We know he has a bold agenda that he wants to enact, things like mass deportations and tariffs, and he does have some questionable commitments to our NATO allies. And so if Republicans were to get control of the House, that would further his agenda that way. If Democrats get control, it could be a check on his power, given the fact that the Senate is controlled by Republicans.
And now exit polls show abortion was a key issue in this election, even topping immigration. Missouri passed a ballot measure to reverse its total abortion ban, but Florida failed to reach the 60% threshold for its ballot measure. So where does the battle over abortion rights go from here?
I mean, the battle over abortion rights is going to be state by state because of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And so Florida was the first time that we saw pro-abortion efforts lose in terms of a ballot initiative. Even in ruby red states, we've seen pro-abortion efforts typically win. But it's important to note that Florida has a 60% threshold. So it was actually still a majority of voters who cast ballots in favor of abortion access. It's just that Florida had a provision that makes it more difficult for those measures to pass.
All right, Deputy Political Director Avery Harper, thank you. And let's bring in Republican strategist and former Trump administration official Neil Chatterjee, along with ABC News contributor, former Progressive Senate candidate Cristina Cincin Ramirez for more. Neil, what should the top priorities be for the next Trump administration?
Look, the former president and soon-to-be president ran on the economy, on tackling inflation, on border security and immigration policy. I think that's where the focus will be. My background's in energy. There's tremendous opportunity in the energy space. I think the president is going to lead on energy, on all forms of energy. There's been a lot of talk about how he'll just focus on oil and gas. I also think he's going to focus on the energy transition, on promoting renewables, on making sure that we have the power to support artificial intelligence and data centers. I think there are a lot of areas in which we can show real progress and growth on the energy front and with the economy.
Christina, this wasn't just a win on Republicans' side for the White House. They also won the Senate. They could win the House. That's still up for grabs. One of the first things President-elect Trump said early this morning in his victory speech was talking about healing the country. So do you see an opportunity for Democrats to work alongside Republicans in Congress and also President-elect Trump?
I mean, I would hope and pray that there would be some bringing of the country together. Unfortunately, Donald Trump's past indicates to me that that is highly unlikely. It's something that he said during the convention, that he was going to heal the country and bring the country together, and then continued to foment division, discord, go after his enemies. I hope that Republicans and Democrats can come together to make sure that there is checks and balances on his power, because he is so extreme in what he wants to do against his enemies within the American people or his political enemies. And the truth is, they're not enemies. They're people with disagreements. And so there has to be, in any kind of real democracy, space for public discord, public disagreement, and peaceful transfer of power.
So, Neil, let's talk about what that message from Trump means. Him saying it's time to heal the country, it's time to unite. What does that look like from a man whose own chief of staff called him a fascist, right? A lot of people going into this election have real concerns about what it means to have a second Trump administration. So what are your assurances to them?
Look, I think he has shown efforts by reaching out to people like Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard to be a part of his inner circle. And I think, honestly, the fact that now the election is over, he's won, I think the mood and the tone will come down. The temperature will come down because we're now past the election. We saw this in 2004. Progressives really hated George W. Bush, but their animus was reduced when he got into his second term. 2012. Republicans, conservatives, really despised President Obama, but their animus towards him was lessened after he was reelected in 2012. Look, President Trump has won a second term. He's got 4 years, and he will not seek office again. And I think that will enable him to bring folks together. Now that the politics are out of this, I think he can calmly focus on uniting the country and bringing us out of this difficult economic position and leading us to prosperity.
Christina, where do Democrats go from here, and what are the lessons the party needs to learn given the results of the election that we already have and the potential to lose the House as well, if that does happen?
Yeah, I think that Harris was dealt a difficult hand coming in so late. But I think ultimately what I see is an American public that is in deep economic pain and has been swinging between Democrat and Republican, trying to disrupt the status quo, that half of Americans have to spend more than they should on their rent and barely can afford it, or the fact that nearly half of Americans have $0 in emergency savings. And that has been for years in this country. And ultimately, Democrats that believe in worker power, unions, taxing the rich their fair share, raising the minimum wage to a living wage, these are incredibly popular policies that need to be at the forefront of any presidential campaign moving forward to be able to win the American public that, again, has deep economic pain. And ultimately, I don't think the Trump administration's blame on poor brown and black immigrants that fill essential jobs in our country are really where the wealth is being held. It's being held by people like Elon Musk, that is worth $260 billion and set to make billions more potentially with Trump tax cuts and government contracts.
All right, we have to leave it there. Neil Chatterjee, Christina Sunsun-Ramirez, thank you both.
Thank you.
And do stick around. We have a lot more news for you after the break, including more on these election results and what a second Trump administration could look like. Stay with us.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our combat operations center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions. Operational nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your